John Wesley Culp stood, the shocked eyes mouth agape. Not far from the creek he splashed and laughed when young. A soldier reached up to him and went blank. The other soldier beside Wesley, there too, behind the boulder, went blank. Wesley didn't listen, ever. Just then he had flown a hole in his forehead from a .58 caliber ball. The soldiers pulled him in like a sack of grain. Strange is the way Wesley Culp came home. This young, headstrong man, the one who made fancy horse-drawn coaches beautiful, but why was he always at the center of stupendous quirks of fate? He was like the needle in his maker's hand. Huge coincidences and the unsolved all came with him, like the thread coming with the needle. So legendary is the seemingly uneventful life of Wesley Culp that Time magazine, in its April 9th, 1934 issue, writes, "Say, did anybody tell you about Wesley Culp?" It's a line in author McKinley Cantor's then new book, Long Remember. It is a true story where one man is killed in war near, of all places, a farm owned by his family, where the letter he was asked to deliver to a woman in Gettysburg was not delivered because he was killed, and she too had been killed by a stray bullet to become the only non-soldier to die amid 46,000 harmed soldiers, and where the man who loved her, who wrote the letter to her and gave it to Culp, the man who did not know of Culp's, his love's, and his own impending death, where Wesley Culp, the first man who was killed near his family farm, would be linked in death by mean gossip to the unexplained crying of a baby. Wesley Culp was born in 1839 to Jessie, a tailor, and Margaret Culp. William, Barbara Ann, and Julia were his brother and sisters. Wesley learned tailoring from his father. The children swam at the swimming hole in Rocky Creek, not far from what was called Culp's Hill. Wesley and William apprenticed in a carriage-making shop, making trim. Wesley added decorative stitching to the leather mudguards, for example, making the starter holes in the leather, punching out the holes with his awl, pulling through the needle, and with it the waxed thread. His small hands handled nimbly the thimble, thread, and needles to make the fringe and finer touches. When the Hoffman family's carriage business upped and moved 40 miles south to Shepherdstown, Virginia on the Potomac River, Wesley, William, and other boys followed. Wesley worked on a special project at 27-year-old carriage maker John C. Allen's shop in nearby Martinsburg in 1860. But his home shop was on Princess Street with John P. Hoffman and Sons in Shepherdstown. Daily, he walked a few hundred feet from Stone Row on New Street, where he boarded with a family. Neighbors were the Cookuses, a butcher family, Michael, his son John, wife Ann and their 4 children, blacksmith Conrad Snyder, his wife Josephine, their 3 girls and son, plasterer Tom Fawcett and his family of 5, and coach trimmer David Connor, his wife Josephine, and 20-year-old son Newton, who was a boatman. Wesley joined the town's militia that rushed to Harper's Ferry on October 17, 1859, when the raid by John Brown and his slavery-hating warriors took hostages and 18 people died. 6 more died through March of 1860 as the raiders were hanged in Charlestown after state-run trials. These Hamtramck guards, as they were called, kept drilling hard, fearing a coming war. The 4th of July celebration in 1860 at Big Spring near Morgan's Grove held together just barely. It began with the Hamtramck guards, the spirited notes of the fife and the inspired music of the drum, marching from the town armory in full parade dress, each man having 15 rounds of blank cartridges. Auctioneer George McGlinchey lifted his glass to "The Union, may the ship of state ride safely into port over the troubled waters." Then C.W. Yaunce counter-toasted, "To Virginia, so long as she contains the graves of Washington, Jefferson, and Madison, she must be faithful to her glorious title of Old Dominion." John Ziddle, living up on German Street, wrote in the Register, "There are 4 candidates for President of the United States. The contest bids fair to be the warmest ever known in the political annals of our country. The troubled waters appear so threatening to engulf us, we can invoke the blessings of Providence to direct us through." Those enslaved, sensing a new world, fled in a gathering torrent, reaching 589 by the census takers' count in August of 1860. Someone quipped, "Sometimes you send them to run an errand and they just keep running." As the chasm of discord widened between those living in the North and the South, William Culp decided to go back to Gettysburg. Both his parents had now died. Gathered local militia watched a great glow and roar coming from Harper's Ferry the night they tried to capture the 15,000 arms and equipment of the Federal Armory. Its commander blew it up to keep them from doing so. Wesley enlisted on April 18th into Company B of the new 2nd Virginia Infantry Regiment along with many friends, including 20-year-old William Arthur, and in a few months, German-born family man and fellow tailor John Snyder. Snyder and Arthur would be at Wesley's side in many tough times. Wesley's brother William Culp was enlisting as a corporal in Company E, 2nd Pennsylvania Infantry, calling Wesley a traitor. 23-year-old David Hahn boarded with Culp, the story goes. Almost a full foot taller than the mousy Culp, with light hair, blue eyes, and a farmhand's frame, he joined Company F of the 1st Virginia Cavalry, the same day Culp enlisted. The 2nd Virginia's Captain Henry Kidd Douglas had a super short gunstock made for Culp, bringing Wesley's eager fingers within reach of the trigger.